our number 10 spot, we have Ring Around the Rosie. Ring Around the Rosie originated in 1881, and while a lot of us think we know the dark origin surrounding it, it turns out that what we may have believed might not actually be true at all. Many people believe that the nursery rhyme was about the 1665 Great Plague of London, and that the Rosie was in reference to a rash that the infected person would get, and that the pocket full of posies was to cover the smell, and that the ending of ashes, ashes, we all fall down, well, you know what that was thought to be. But as it turns out, this apparently is not the origin at all. Apparently the origins are more likely to be from the religious ban on dancing that many 19th century Protestants in Britain and North America faced. They created a thing called play parties to get around the ban, which were ring games, which were different enough from dancing that they were allowed, but close enough that children were able to get the same kind of effect as dancing. I suppose this may be a little less dark than what we originally thought, but a ban on dancing is definitely pretty extreme.
We have Peter Pumpkin Eater. It seems pretty innocent. I mean, I don't know if I would be scared by a dude who eats pumpkins unless he's like eating a raw pumpkin standing in my room in the dark. Then that would creep me out probably. But even though this nursery rhyme sounds like a strange gourd-eating dude who has a lot of trouble keeping a girlfriend, it actually has a very dark twist. The rhyme goes, Peter Pumpkin Eater had a wife but couldn't keep her. Put her in a pumpkin shell and there he kept her very well. The whole part about having a wife and not being able to keep her was about his wife cheating on him. And then the part about putting her in a pumpkin shell, Peter killed his wife, chopped her up, and then put her body in a chimney. Oh my god. Please dude, calm down. It is very heartbreaking to get cheated on, but you don't need to go off the deep end like this. Ugh. Also, the reason it says pumpkin in the nursery rhyme instead of chimney for where he hid the body is so that the poem would have that amazing alliteration. You gotta take some creative liberties with something, even when the poem is about murder. At number 8 we have London Bridge. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. This nursery rhyme sounds more like a report, like someone ran in out of breath to tell the queen that London Bridge was falling down, remembered that she was a queen and was like, my lord or my lady, or like, you know, whatever they said to those people. However, the truth behind this nursery rhyme is even scarier. Apparently they used to do human sacrifices and place them at the bottom of bridges to make sure they would never fall. This song was a reminder to people that they must sacrifice people at the base of a bridge to protect it. Some people were killed in a way called tombing, where they would be cemented into a room that was at the base of the bridge that had no exit. The people in there would just stay there until they died from starvation or dehydration. At number 7 we have Baa Baa Black Sheep. I fully thought the backstory on this one was going to be super racist, but thankfully it is not. The story goes, Baa Baa Black Sheep, have you any wool? Yes sir, 3 bags full. One for the master, one for the dame, and one for the little boy who lives down the lane. This song was actually about the increase in wool taxes from the 13th century English king, King Edward I. Basically, farmers would have to give away huge portions of their wool for free because nothing in life is ever fair. A third would go to the master, who was the king, a third would go to the dame, who was the church, and then the final third would be left to the farmer to make some money. 2/3 of your wealth gone before you even have a chance to flip it. That's some dirty stuff. At number 6 we have Rockabye Baby. Let's start this one off with the nursery rhyme, then we'll break it down after. Rockabye baby from the treetop, when the wind blows the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks the cradle will fall, and down will come baby, cradle and all. Who's putting a baby on the top of a tree on a windy day and then just watching it? You don't even need to go into the backstory on this one to find the dark meaning. Well, just so you know, this nursery rhyme is apparently about King James II and Mary of Medina. They stole someone's baby, saying it was theirs, and then were presenting it as the one true king to the throne, someone who is next in line, their heir. So what's scarier, putting babies in trees during a hurricane, or stealing babies so you can lie to your nation and manipulate the people? You decide. At number 5 we have Georgie Porgie Pudding and Pie. Kissed the girls and made them cry. When the boys came out to play, Georgie Porgie ran away. It sounds like a guy who was going around kissing people's girlfriends and then had to run away before some dude beat him up with a baseball bat. And the truth isn't that far off. Actually, it's way juicier. The background on this story has some hot tea, like let me tell ya. Apparently this is about the Duke of Buckingham, George Villiers, having a secret gay relationship with King James I. Oh my god, that's spicy. The girls that Georgie boy was making cry were queens. God damn. At number 4 we have Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to get her poor dog a bone. When she got there the cupboard was bare, so poor doggy had none. That's such a sad story. Why would you ever tell that to a kid? Kids should imagine that there's a world filled with happy doggos who have enough bones to eat every day. But thankfully, this nursery rhyme isn't about a sad dog. My heart could not bear the weight. It's actually about King Henry VIII and how the Catholic Church wouldn't let him get a divorce from his wife. So he made England abandon Catholicism, then he made the Church of England, then he started cutting off the head of every lady that would marry him until he ate so many fatty foods he got gout and died. Isn't that a nicer story? No, it definitely isn't. At number 3, we have Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown and Jill came tumbling after. We have another saucy one for you guys. Strap in. So this nursery rhyme is apparently about a couple in Old English times. It's estimated it would have been around the 1500s. These two would sneak off to go cheat on their spouses. Already juicy. Then what happened is Jill got pregnant. Jack killed himself from the stress of the situation, and then Jill dies while in childbirth, and then Jill dies while giving birth to their bastard son. This is some Game of Thrones level drama. At number 2, we have Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush. I never got this one as a kid. I didn't know what a mulberry bush was, and I didn't know why people would want to walk around it. I figured mulberries were like the most amazing fruit. It was like a blackberry that got fused with a gusher and then got dipped in frosting and then deep fried. Why else would people want to walk around a bush like that all day? Well, it was because they had nothing better to do. Walking around the mulberry bush was a reference to a woman's prison, where exercise for the day would be a little jaunt around the bush before everyone was forced back into their cells. So mulberry bush was the exact opposite of something great. It was literally all they had. At number 1, we have Goosey Goosey Gander, Whither dost thou wander? Upstairs and downstairs in my lady's chamber, where I met the old man who wouldn't say his prayers. I took him by the leg and threw him down the stairs. This one takes the number 1 spot because it really represents fear. After King Henry VIII made England leave the Catholic Church, there was a bunch of priests who refused to stop serving their god. Well, King Henry wasn't going to take this laying down, so he sent out a manhunt for these men. Priests were taken out into the streets and then killed for their beliefs. There was actually a hiding spot built into people's homes called a priest hole to try and keep the priests safe from the invading guards. This is crazy.
Alright, coming in at number 10, we have Jack and Jill. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. So apparently Jack and Jill is actually an allegorical poem originating from France about the Reign of Terror, the end of the French monarchy. Jack refers to King Louis XVI, the last king of France. He fell down and broke his crown. Well, Louis met his end at the guillotine. Ugh. Shortly, he was then followed by Queen Marie Antoinette, who, like Jill, made her fall from grace shortly after. The Reign of Terror was complete in 1793 when Antoinette was chopped.
In our number 9 spot today, we have Peter Peter Pumpkin Eater. Peter Peter Pumpkin Eater is one that I don't really know the origins of, but we have got to take a look at these lyrics and try to interpret what they could be about. He had a wife, but couldn't keep her, so he put her in a pumpkin shell and kept her there? Firstly, this guy likes pumpkins way too much. But secondly, and more importantly, did he kidnap a woman and keep her hostage? Or does this mean that he ate her? Because he very quickly moves on to another woman that he doesn't even like? There's a lot going on in this one, and as we've come to realize from this list, the sweet little rhymes aren't always as innocent as they appear. If you know the origin tale behind this nursery rhyme, let us know down below in the comments so we can get down to the bottom of this mystery. In our number 8 spot today, we have Eenie, Meenie, Miney, Mo. Eenie, Meenie, Miney, Mo catch a tiger by his toe seems like it should be harmless enough, right? Well, the origins of it have been masked by the changing of one word in this little rhyme. The word tiger is relatively new to the rhyme and was actually a replacement for the N-word. Many people had no idea that these were the origins behind this one, and some people have even found the nursery rhyme damaging despite the change in lyrics. I know the rhyme has an entirely different connotation and message than it used to, but it has been used in way too recent of history for us to not stop and take a second to acknowledge where it actually comes from. In 2004, there were actually 2 passengers on a Southwest Airlines flight who sued the company over a flight attendant who used that rhyme in what she thought was a playful fashion, person as she announced over the speaker, "Eenie, Meenie, Miney, Mo, please sit down, it's time to go." The court did end up siding with the airline because this may have been a bit overdramatic, but it certainly is a reminder to all of us to be careful of what exactly we are saying. In our number 7 spot today, we have Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary. Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary is perhaps unsurprisingly about Queen Mary I. What seems like someone asking for some gardening advice is actually just a sweet little description of how murderous the Queen really was. With a nickname like Bloody Mary, I guess it really does make sense. Queen Mary was extremely religious, and as a Catholic, during her reign, she was sure to see the execution of hundreds of Protestants. The silver bells and cockle shells that the rhyme mentions are actually apparently torture devices. The growing of the garden is apparently in reference to the bodies in the cemetery, and the pretty maids all in a row are the people who were lined up for the guillotine. This one is much darker than I would have ever realized, and it's actually kind of sad. I'm glad to know the story behind this one though, so that I can ensure to remove it from my repertoire. In our number 6 spot today, we have It's Raining, It's Pouring. It's Raining, It's Pouring was always a fun little ditty to pass the time on a rainy day, but boy, when we actually look into this one, it may not be at all what it seems. It seems to be one of the cases where we sing the tune without really thinking about the words we are saying. The old man is snoring, he went to bed, bumped his head, but he couldn't get up in the morning? Is this man okay? Can somebody get him some help? This makes me wonder if his head bump gave him a concussion and he didn't know and he didn't have someone there to wake him up every so often. I have so many questions about this one, and the rhyme does not give us any answers at all. It's not like there's a dark story that ends off on a happy note or really any sort of conclusion at all. We're all just left wondering if the old man will ever be okay. In our number 5 spot today, we have Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush. Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush is a part of a cute children's game, but it does not have the origins I think any of us were thinking. This song, according to historians, actually originated in a female prison. Apparently at England's Wakefield prison, women used to be exercised around a mulberry bush in the moonlight, and this is what the song is allegedly referring to. This certainly isn't the darkest one on this list, but it definitely is a weird concept to think of as a children's game. This mulberry bush actually was still around until recently in 2017 when it ended up dying. It was cut down, but there were cuttings from it from years before that had been planted and have now turned into mature trees, so cuttings from those would be planted in the original spot in order to grow a new one. I guess that's a bit of a nicer ending to kind of a sad story. In our number 4 spot today, we have Georgie Porgie, Puddin' and Pie. Georgie Porgie is one of those rhymes that we know can't be good just based off of the lyrics themselves. Georgie Porgie, Puddin' and Pie, kissed the girls and made them cry. Okay, that's creepy. Stealing kisses from girls who clearly don't want to be kissed is a concept I don't really have to explain why it's awful, but just to say that he runs away when the boys come out to play, is that because he's scared of the repercussions of his actions? Anyway, this rhyme is thought to be about King Charles II, who has quite a reputation for, well, everything we just talked about. King Charles II was known for being too busy with women to actually focus on his royal duties. Like, to the point where he forced his wife Catherine to appoint one of his mistresses as the Lady of the Bedchamber, which granted her the ability to roam around the castle as she pleased, but also ensure she would be there whenever King Charles needed her. Ew. It's just gross to even think about, and it makes you really feel for poor Catherine. What a terrible situation to be forced into. In our number 3 spot today, we have London Bridge Has Fallen Down. Okay, so first of all with this one, I have to ask why we were all just okay with singing about the collapsing of a bridge to begin with. Backstory or not, there's a lot to unpack there, but let's get into the origins of this one as well. There are a few theories surrounding this one, and some are less horrible than others. One is that this song may just be in reference to how difficult the bridge was to build and that it took years before it was completed. Okay, not so bad. Another theory is that it is referencing the apparent destruction of the London Bridge by Olaf II of Norway all the way back in 1014. Okay, less great, but still not the worst on this list. But here's the last theory, that the song is actually about a child sacrifice ritual and that the song is about burying children alive in the foundation of the bridge. This is because of the belief that the bridge would collapse if there wasn't a human body buried at the base of it, and that there needed to be a watchman in order to ensure it stayed intact. The good news is that there hasn't been any evidence of this found in the foundations of the bridge, but I truly don't even want to know how this rumor got its start in the first place, because it can't be good. In our number 2 spot today, we have Rockabye Baby. Firstly, just the lyrics to this one are very weird and creepy despite any kind of backstory, but the origins of this one are thought to be with the son of King James II and Mary. That's it. That's who she is today. It is actually believed that their son was not their biological son and that he was a baby brought into the birthing room in order to be passed off as theirs so as to ensure a Roman Catholic heir to the throne. Apparently in these times, cradles were sometimes hung in trees, so the song is about a baby who was in his cradle with a soft breeze rocking him back and forth, but then a thief came to steal him out of it for the sake of the king and queen, which led the cradle to fall, baby and all. This is definitely not what I would have thought this one was about, and it certainly is very horrifying. In our number 1 spot today, we have the 3 Blind Mice. The 3 Blind Mice is probably not really appropriate anymore, but it also has absolutely nothing to do with rodents. The rhyme is actually another one that comes from Bloody Queen Mary's reign, and what she did when she found some men who were conspiring against her. Queen Mary has been known for her violent reign and insatiable bloodlust, so this story may not be all that surprising, but it certainly is dark. The story behind this one is that 3 Protestant bishops, Hugh Latimer, Nicholas Radley, and the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer, all foiled a plan to try and overthrow the queen. The blindness is apparently in reference to their religious beliefs, and when she found out about this plan, instead of cutting off the tails of the mice, as the rhyme suggests, she instead burned them at the stake. It's kind of wild to think this is the story kids have been singing for centuries, and it's actually about people being burned alive.
At number 10, we have Humpty Dumpty. Let's kick off this list with a classic. Everyone knows Humpty Dumpty. A dude sitting on a wall who's also an egg, and I'm guessing is very irresponsible. If you're an egg, you probably should avoid ledges. Your body is very round, you roll easily, and a fall from a few inches means certain death. It is really about a cannon that was used in the Second English Civil War. Humpty Dumpty was a common expression for something that was very large, very heavy. Sometimes they used this expression for massive artillery. Well, in one of the battles of the Second English Civil War, there was a cannon on top of a church nicknamed Humpty Dumpty. It was blasting away men left and right. Because of this, it drew fire of the opposing forces, the church got blasted, then Humpty Dumpty was having that great fall that everyone was talking about. The real story is much more intense, but I like the idea of an egg with makeup on pouting on the side of a wall. That's very funny.
Coming in at number 9, we have Goosey Goosey Gander. This is another one of those secretly about religion things, and back in the day, religion often meant death. Oh. Did I say back in the day? So the rhyme goes, Goosey Goosey Gander, whither dost thou wander? Upstairs and downstairs and in my lady's chamber. There I met an old man who wouldn't say his prayers. I took him by the left leg and threw him down the stairs. To be honest, it already does sound pretty stressful. Basically, this is a Protestant Catholic thing. The story goes that when King Henry VIII created the Anglican Church, a lot of Catholic priests were understandably not very happy about it. Many refused to follow his Protestant faith and made secret rooms to pray in Latin. If they were found, they were often thrown down the stairs, or simply put to death. So when Goosey Gander is thrown down the stairs in this rhyme, it's likely he was sent off to be murdered horribly. Cheery! Coming in at number 8, we have Lucy Locket. Nothing scarier than your loved one leaving you for another person, especially when that person is a courtesan, which is a much nicer name for prostitute. The little Lucy Locket rhyme goes, Lucy Locket lost her pocket, Kitty Fisher found it. Not a penny was in there, only ribbon round it. So yeah, the story goes that Lucy's beau left her and spent his money on buying Kitty for a few nights. Back in the day, in the 1700s, it also seems that locket was a word for, well, you have a guess. Coming into number 7, we have There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly. Okay, actually this nursery rhyme is dark and scary in itself when you stop and think about it, regardless of its origin. The story is total chaos. It's about a woman who swallows a fly, but then ends up swallowing loads of other ridiculous things to try and catch the thing that came before it. First she swallows a fly, we don't know why, and yes, perhaps she will die. But then, in a bid for saviour, she swallows a spider to catch the fly, then a bird to catch the spider, then a cat to catch the bird, and then a dog to catch the cat. Eventually, she ends up swallowing a horse, and yes, she dies, of course. Now, this is a whole lot of death and mindless consumption in one rhyme. A cautionary tale, sure, but is this appropriate? Coming into number 6, we have Ladybug Ladybug. The content of this one is actually super scary as it is. Have a listen. Ladybug Ladybug, fly away home. Your house is on fire, your children will burn. Except for the little one whose name is Anne, who hid away in a frying pan. I mean, it's pretty dark anyway, right? I guess it should be, because it seems that the rhyme originated from the Great Fire of London in 1666, in which much of the British capital was burned. Only 6 people died, but a lot of people were injured. Who Anne is? I have no idea, but I would never advise hiding in a frying pan. Coming into number 5, we have 3 blind mice. 3 blind mice. 3 blind mice. See how they run. See how they run. They all run after the farmer's wife, who cut off their tail with a carving knife. Did you ever see such a sight in your life as 3 blind mice? So this little ditty is said to refer to Queen Mary I, aka Bloody Mary. The 3 blind mice are said to be Protestant bishops, blind because of their religion. Mary famously went on a brutal murdering spree of Protestants, although she didn't cut off their tails, she burned most of them at the stake. Some reports do say that Mary was partial to a bit of dismembering, so when it came to her enemies, I don't know, maybe she did whip them off and bleh. Coming in at number 4, we have Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush. Here we go round the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush. Here we go round the mulberry bush, so early in the morning. Like I want to sing it. La 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 la. I would never have guessed the origins of this one, honestly. It just sounds like people having a lovely little dance around a tree in the garden. Cool, right? Well, apparently the rhyme does come from a women's prison in Wakefield, England. The rhyme comes from the mid-19th century and is said to depict how female prisoners were made to exercise by running around a mulberry bush in the moonlight. Doesn't sound that scary? Well, try being a female prisoner in the 19th century. They weren't exactly treated very well. Coming into number 3, we have Sing a Song of Sixpence. This is one of my favourite nursery rhymes, and it's actually very, very popular in the UK. So it goes, sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was opened, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before a king? The king was in his counting house, counting up his money. The queen was in the parlour, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes, when down came a blackbird and pecked off her nose. So apparently this little ditty was about the divorce of Henry VIII to his first wife Catherine of Aragon and the dissolution of the church as a result of the stringent Catholic Church's rules on separation. The blackbirds are said to be the bishop of the Catholic Church, who didn't like Anne Boleyn. The king was in his counting house bit basically refers to the money that the king was making from stealing the Catholic Church's assets. We all know how it ended between horny Henry and Anne Boleyn. Chopped. Once again, there are no heads. Coming into number 2, we have Little Miss Muffet. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating her curds and whey. Along came a spider who sat down beside her and frightened Miss Muffet away. So apparently during the 16th century, some physicians, including Thomas Muffet, believed that eating spiders would cure certain illnesses. So the rhyme is about the fear patients felt when they were presented with arachnids to eat. Understandably, to be honest with you. Ugh. Finally, coming into number 1, we have Humpty Dumpty. So Humpty Dumpty is pretty dark. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. To be honest, it already sounds pretty grim for old Humpty. Turns out that egg is smashed. Although, in history, we actually don't think Humpty Dumpty was an egg. Historians think that Humpty Dumpty was the name of a cannon used during the English Civil War. Classic English dark humour there, giving a weapon of war a cutesy name. Honestly, we're dark and scary people. The story goes that King Charles I had a big old cannon, the aforementioned Humpty. He put it high up on a wall and used it to bombard and kill the enemy. Sadly for old Humpty, he was knocked off the wall thanks to a nasty retaliation cannon. The wall beneath Humpty collapsed and, like the rhyme goes, all of the king's horses and all of the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. In the end, Charles lost the war and was executed. So I guess it sucks to be Charles, really.